Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk about why just write another book is not a viable marketing strategy. So this is something that I have talked about in some of my previous videos, and it is something that Neil recently wrote in one of his blog posts, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit more in detail as well. So what exactly does that mean? A big part of the writing and publishing industry is made up of what we call the old guard. And what this means is it's the older generations of authors and publishers and just people in this industry who the reason why they are given that term is that they are rather out of touch with how the today and now is in the industry. So the old guard that we often discuss are typically more so made up of the authors rather than other contributors to the industry like editors and publishers and literary agents and such. It's usually more so the authors themselves. And it's of a particular age group where they found their success in the 70s and the 80s, and they just kind of kept trucking on with what works for them. And it worked for them. It was very successful, and they were very successful. And one of the biggest things that was touted during this time period was the best way to market yourself as an author and to gain success is to just write another book, meaning just keep creating content to put out there that the more books you have, the more books your readers will want to read, and it keeps you relevant. Seems like a pretty good strategy on the surface. And while yes, this is still a strategy that you want to follow today, it is not the marketing strategy. In fact, it is not a marketing strategy at all. In today's world, it's called literally just keeping yourself relevant as an author. Is you have to continue to create content for people to read, because once you stop putting out books, eventually your audience is going to dry up. And back in the day, that strategy was enough. That was all you needed, because back in the day, publishers and literary agents and publicists all did all the heavy lifting for the authors, and they were by and large told, all you have to do is just sit here and write books. You don't have to worry your pretty little head about anything else. We'll do all the marketing. You just sit here and write books. Today's world, that is so far from the case, y'all. And it's frustrating as a younger author and a newer author in comparison to the old guard that they refuse to listen to this, and that they keep giving this outdated advice to new authors and hopeful writers, that they keep giving this outdated advice as if it is gospel and it'll work for them, and that these newbies follow it and then are confused as to why it's not working. And it's so sad and frustrating to see this play out over and over and over again. And I'm here to tell you, just write another book is not a marketing strategy. I'm sorry, it's not. And if you're going to argue with me in the comments, I need you to reveal when you published your first novel, what year it was, because that will tell a lot about why you want to argue against that particular strategy. I'm sorry if that sounds ageist, but this is just a fact that if you found your success in the 70s and 80s, it is very likely you have not changed your strategy, and simply by the miracle of that you still have your audience going strong is the only reason why you're still successful. New authors don't have that built in. They don't just have this audience that is just voracious for their books in particular. And there is an audience of voracious readers in the world. In fact, because of Book Talk on TikTok and Bookstagram on Instagram, reading is more popular than it's been in so many years. It's amazing. It's an absolute boon for authors. However, the problem with that is with that newfound boon, you have everybody and their Aunt Sally picking up the pen. So there is more competition than ever. And on top of there being more competition than ever, there's also more noise than ever. So you have all these other authors that are also out there writing their books. And you also have grifters putting out AI slop, adding to the competition and the noise. And then you have social media. And social media is like the kryptonite that the old guard just freaks out and loses their mind about. And they will absolutely tell you, oh, nobody needs this silly social media stuff. Just write another book. I can't tell you how many times I've had the old guard say that and say it to my face and even talk over me on panels and say that. And it is wrong. Social media is here to stay. It is not a new fad. In fact, we even have geriatric social media platforms now where things like Facebook are considered for old people because it's an old platform. It's not going anywhere. And in fact, our world largely revolves around social media and the attention economy now. And we just have to make do with that. This is just how the world works now. Would I very much love to just write another book? 100%. If that was a viable strategy, I can't tell y'all how ridiculously wealthy I would be by now with how many books I've written and how many I have on my list to finish writing. It would be ridiculous. But that's not reality, and that's not the time period we're living in. So here we are, in the age of I posted over 21,000 posts in 2024, and I am set for 2025 to completely annihilate that number. I am creating more content than ever before. I have completely bolstered my 2 YouTube channels to the point of ridiculousness with content. It is out of control. The level of social media work that I have to do in relation to how much time and space I have to be able to actually work on my writing, it's like this, y'all. It's awful. And this is not unique to me. This is like most writers and authors now, is that the amount of time you have to spend on your marketing for your books far outweighs the amount of time you get to spend actually working on your writing. And it is sad. And we hate it, by the way. Like, that's one of the other things that the old guard touts, is that they think we're all having the best time begging people on the internet to please buy our books. No. If every author woke up tomorrow and was told, you don't have to do any of this anymore, you can just write books forever and you'll just get your bills paid, I guarantee you 90% of authors would just log off of social media forever and just lock themselves away and write and be so happy about it. At least that would be my dream come true. And from many people I've talked to, that would also be their dream come true. And I can't tell you how many authors I see post on the daily on all the social media platforms about how much they hate marketing and hate posting about their books on social media. We all hate it. So this isn't a matter of like, the young people these days with their silly social media, and we're all like, Grandpa, you don't understand. Social media is great. It is helpful, but we don't like it. So it is very much one of those things where it's a double-edged sword of social media has been very helpful with that. Now we have authors who are able to get their works out there without a lot of the constraints, quite frankly, discrimination and gatekeeping of the traditional publishing world, which also, by and large, is a big part of the old guard. And they will happily go on rants to tell you all about who's a real author and what a real book is and all of that nonsense. And the fact of the matter is that it's just this big divide between people who are currently living in the past but still finding success in that past, which is why they haven't changed their tune, and all these people that are dealing with the aftermath and they just kind of have to deal with reality as is. With all that advent of all these people getting a new platform and a new voice, that means more shouting and more competition and more books than ever before. I covered that in another one of my videos where, y'all, there are more books being published every year than ever in the history of ever. It is crazy how many books are being published on a yearly basis now. The numbers are astronomical, and they're only going to get bigger. And that's with the combination of all of the new people that are energized to become authors, and yay for you. I just want to say that right now. Yay for you. Even though we are all out here competing and shouting and jumping and trying to get our books heard, I want for my fellow authors to succeed. Yay. Who I don't want to succeed are the AI grifters. Like, boo to you, and I wish you much failure. I really, really do, from the bottom of my black little heart. And that's the big part of it, is that we have to compete not only against each other, but we also have to compete with literal grifters and scam artists. And it sucks. It sucks, y'all. And it's the level of the grifting and the scamming is also higher than ever before. And it sucks. And readers even are seeing the detriment of this, in that now there's the question of what is a real book anymore. And not in the terms of the way that the old guard describes it, but which is a book written by a person and which is written by a robot. And the problem with that is that there is a certain amount of deception at play here. Just recently, there was a best-selling author who left an oopsie in her book that showed an AI prompt. And everyone lost their minds, as they should. They were absolutely betrayed that this author was in fact writing her books with AI, which begs the question of, if you don't actually write your book yourself, can you even call yourself an author? In my personal opinion, no. And many of their readers felt the same and immediately dropped her books into the trash, and I don't blame them. Because when there's already such a competition of humanity trying to put their stories out there that they wrote with their entire heart and soul for one reason or another, and then you have grifters just sending out robot slop that isn't based on any sort of human experience or joy or hope or despair, what even is that? But I digress. AI rant over. With this whole just write another book thing, it is discouraging because as a prolific author myself, as someone who did follow the model of just write another book, I published a book, and the amount of sales that I got was abysmal compared to my expectations. And I was told, just write another book. And so I did. Sales not up to snuff. The branding, the level of awareness, just people didn't know who I was as an author, people didn't know my books, people weren't buying my books, people weren't reading my books. So I wrote another book, and that didn't help. And I very much did a 3 strikes you're out. I wrote and published 3 books, and I'm like, okay, all right, I see what's going on here. Just write another book does diddly shit. Now, regardless, I'm going to still forever continue to write and publish books, whether or not I get book sales, because that is the core of my being, that I have these stories that I need to share with the world. Whether or not people buy them and read them is a totally separate conversation. However, that is the conversation we're having today. So the fact of the matter was that, yes, I'm going to keep writing and publishing, but let's examine this, because clearly doing the same thing over and over again is insanity, and we're not about to write a 4th book thinking that's just going to magically solve our problems. So that's when I really started to get into the heavy lifting of marketing my books. I went hardcore on my social media, and funny enough, unfortunately, this was also around the time period that COVID happened, so I was given all the time and space to do this, albeit I was in a completely traumatized, panicked state at all times, but goodness me, I did it. I built up my social media from only having about 300 to 400 followers to I now have over 10,000 followers. I built out my social media accounts by exponential quantity, and I quickly learned about all of the trends and all of the skills that I needed to start gathering up in order to really push this machine to do my bidding. And that's what I've basically done, is I have turned social media into my bitch, and its entire purpose is to shove my brand out there, and all roads lead to Rome, in that even though I do all these different things, if you notice, they all end with, oh, by the way, I have books. So no matter which avenue you take, it's, oh, by the way, I write books if you're interested. And that is the goal. And that was the strategy I created. And that I have completely built this monster of a social media presence, and that I have all these different accounts that do all these different things, and that I have to feed them every single day, multiple times a day. And I even have tools that post on my behalf, that I build all the content ahead of time, and it posts for me at certain times a day on certain days. I still have to also manually post every single day too. It's exhausting. And I would so rather just write another book. But unfortunately, we live in 2025 in the age of AI and social media and the attention economy, and writing another book is just not going to cut it. So if you need more information, please absolutely do. Check out Neil's blog on this particular topic. He covers it really well. I'll leave y'all a link in the description below. I hope y'all found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.